would like to talk to you about a subject of LARP production and how everybody is replaceable. And on this theme, I would like to focus on the question of resilience in LARP production. And I will talk about what I mean by this term later on. You probably have some ideas, but we will talk about this. I want to start off with something I used to say, or maybe still will say to people when I talk about one of our LARPs. It's a ship LARP, and it's built in a way where, designed in a way where none of the participants and none of the plots and none of the props and none of the locations are required for the LARP to work. All of this can change, and it's so robust that the LARPs will still work. We had one run in 2020 where we had, instead of 26 players, we had 17. And so a lot of people missed their relations, and still the LARP worked as it should. I never meant this to include me. So what you can see here is a scar on my shoulder. This is when I went to hospital for an injury that I had on my shoulder, and I will talk about this a bit more in detail during the next slides. So first of all, what were my responsibilities for Demeter? My sole responsibility, so I was the person, nobody else was responsible for these things in the LARP. I was the head organizer, I was driving the truck, I was the ship coordinator because I'm the person with the most experience in that. I did all these things, and nobody else had their, as you say, their hat on for that. I also was involved in other stuff like character writing, plot writing, and NPC, being NPC on the ship, doing workshops, setting up the ship, like the decoration of the ship and the cargo hold that we built there. So all of these were things that I did. So obviously, what could possibly go wrong? Murphy stroke back. So last year we had a run where, first of all, one of the organizers got sick themselves. Then a second organizer couldn't participate because their child got sick. So out of the 4 organizers that we usually have, already 2 were out of the game. Then overnight before the LARP, I developed extreme pain in my left shoulder. So I didn't think much about this and packed my stuff and packed got the transporter from the car rental company, drove to our storage, and we started to pack the transporter. And I couldn't lift anything anymore. So there was now one organizer and one organizer with a sick child at home, and they packed the transporter. We went to the ship. There was another organizer there. We unloaded the ship, the transporter to the ship. And the pain went from bad to worse. And overnight, I couldn't sleep at all. So the next morning, I went to the emergency room to get some painkillers and basically just the bandage that you saw earlier on, because the doctor decided it's just an impingement syndrome and I can still go back to the ship. It didn't get better. It went from bad to ugly. So my shoulder didn't improve at all, and the pain got unbearable in a way that I had to go home. One of the NPCs actually drove me from the ship back to Hamburg and then went back to the ship to continue in the game. The 2 dropouts that either were sick themselves or had a sick child at home, they had to go to the car rental to get themselves signed up for the transporter and drive the transporter back home, back to the storage that we had. My shoulder and my ankle actually were infected by a multi-resistant bacteria, which ended up me in a hospital and getting surgeries. And this was so bad that if my wife hadn't sent me to the doctor, which I go easily to the doctor. I'm diabetic, so I'm used to go to the doctor. In this case, I was there already 2 times, and they hadn't helped me. The 3rd time saved my life because they instantly sent me to the hospital. I got surgery that day, and if not, I would have went into sepsis. so multi-organ failure. There were 3 people on the ship left to run the LARP. And these 3 people were Vanja Neite, who had already run the LARP as a co-organizer 3 times, and they took over as the head organizer. Julia Abrams, who's the most amazing kitchen person, and she took over the whole kitchen process. And then we had one participant who already had played the LARP 3 times, who agreed to switch sides and become an NPC. So we gave them their ticket price back, obviously, and then they joined as an NPC, and they together saved the LARP. First of all, this should have broken the LARP. And why did it not? So first of all, the whole LARP is designed for resilience. It means that the LARP itself, as I said before, all the moving parts in the LARP are not required to actually play the LARP and to get to the plot points. When we're sailing, we never know where we will end up. So that's one of the reasons why we designed the LARP like this. And therefore, everything is movable. So we don't know where we will be ending up during a day. And we will make all the things that happen during the LARP happen at the location where we are. And it was the 11th run of the LARP, so we had quite some experience in doing that. So there was a lot of things that we had already built into the LARP that made it possible to have the LARP production also be resilient. So we had a lot of established plans, a clear and established organizational structure, a tested and a clear runtime schedule. And there was backup personnel there. As I said earlier, Vanja and Alana and Julia took over. And they knew the design. They were able to make any decisions as needed, and they trusted that I and the other organizers trusted them with the decision they would make. But there was also stuff we didn't put into this design. And for instance, there was only one driver with a driver's license. That was me. And I had rented the car. There was the distribution of the workload and the knowledge of financial structures there was not ideal, because that was also all me. Other stuff, like my phone was the one running the music that would introduce and end the acts of the game. All of this was missing, and all of these things missing now gives us more knowledge, so we can build a more resilient LARP structure. So I'm using this word all the time. So what is it? It's, as some of you might know, resilience is a word that is used in psychology, and it's also used in organizational development. There are multiple levels that resilience comes in. And usually those are the 4 levels. We're talking about physical resilience. We're talking about mental or emotional, psychological resilience. Then there's emotional and social. And when we talk about the LARP production, there are 4 areas where I would put these. In these 4 areas, I would put certain things. Physical would be props and technology. As you all know, if your LARP relies on a certain prop or technology to work, you need some kind of backup, because usually our technology are doomed to fail. Psychological resilience is organizer mindfulness, or missing this can lead to organizer burnout. That is a big theme that we discussed a lot last year, for instance. The emotional safety, or missing this, possibly participant anxiety, and that's also including organizers and NPCs. And last but not least, social resilience in the field where the organization has a trust in each other, where you have a community that carries the LARP, and where possibly flagging or other technologies, methods are used for the safety of participants, are used to get a social structure that is resilient against changes. And so these are 4 areas where we can improve on resilience in our LARPs, and going forward design our LARP production in a way that they are covered. And as a conclusion, I would say that your LARP production is not resilient unless it can either run without you, or you and your participants are okay with canceling it if you're not there. Thank you.